Hi. Continuing where I left off. Turnus spoke and rose to full height, sword in air, then cleft the man's brow square between the temples, cutting his head in two, dreadful gash. Between the cheeks all beardless. Earth resounded, quivering at the great shock of his weight, as he went tumbling down in all his armor, drenched with blood and brains, in equal halves. His head hung this way and that way from his shoulders. Trojans, aghast, turned round in a stampede, and if the thought had come to the champion to break the gate bars, to admit his friends, that would have been the last days of the war, the last for Trojans. But high rage and mindless lust for slaughter drove the passionate man against his enemies. He caught Phalaris first and Gyges, slashing from behind their leg tendons. Then he took their spears to throw at the backs of men in flight, and Juno gave him heart and force. Next he dispatched Hales to join the rest, and Phagus, his shield run through, and men still on the walls, unwearied there and urging on the fight. Alcandrus, Helios, Nomen, Paretas, all as Lenus came against him, shouting out to his companions. Turnus on the rampart whirled from the right a great sword stroke, and struck him one blow as he closed, taking off his head, which dropped still helmeted at a distance. Next he killed Amycus, nemesis of game, unmatched it at poisoning lance and arrow points, and Clytius, a son of Iolus, and Cretheus, familiar of the Muses, ever in love with Gittin harp and song, and turning notes on strings, forever chanting war horses and wars and feats of arms. The Teucrian commanders, at long last, hearing of carnage wrought among their people, came on the scene. Menethius and grim Serestus, finding their troops distraught, the enemy at large inside, and Menethius shouted at them, "Where do you think you'll run, then, after this? What walls, what fortress have you in reserve? Is a single man hemmed in by your own ramparts, on all sides, countrymen going to cause a massacre like this throughout the town, and not be stopped? Will he dispatch so many of our best men to Orcus? You poltroons, have you no shame, no pity for your own unhappy country, for the gods of old, for great Aeneas?" Burning at these words, they stiffened and stood fast in close array. Now Turnus gradually edged away from combat, moving toward the riverside, where the stream closed the camp. Fiercer at this, the Trojans with a battle cry began to advance against him, massing ranks, as when a crowd with deadly lances at the ready corners a savage lion in his fear. Still dangerous and glaring balefully, he backs away, as neither wrath nor courage allow him to turn tail, yet he is unable, yearn though he may, to charge the men and weapons. Likewise of two minds, Turnus kept steeping backward in no haste, seething with rage. And even twice he turned to charge his foes, put them to flight twice, broken along the walls. But then the entire garrison on the run formed up in a solid mass, and Juno dared not give him power to match theirs. Jupiter sent out of heaven Iris, born on air, to tell his sister his unkind decrees, should Turnus not depart the Trojan ramparts. Therefore neither his shield nor his sword arm availed the man to hold out in the end. Stormed at by missiles from all sides, his helm rang out around his head with constant blows, the bronze dented by stones, the horsehair crest knocked off, and neither could his shield boss take the battering. Now with redoubled force the Trojans cast their spears. Menethus himself, a lightning spearman, cast down Turnus's body. Streaming sweat made rivers black as pitch. He could not get his breath, his gasping shook, his arms and shoulders wearied out. At last, head first in all his armor, down he plunged into the river in one leap. Old Tiber welcomed the diver in his yellow death, buoyed up to the surface in mild water, with carnage washed away, and floated him exultant to his fellow soldiers' hands. Book 10. The Death of Prince. The Olympian hall of Jove emitted morning, and there the father of gods and king of men convoked a council in that starry court, from which he viewed the bright lands far below, the Dardan fortress camp, the Latin races, when all the gods had taken seats together in the great court with gates to east and west. He said to them, Lords of the open sky, why this reversion to old thoughts and aims, and bitter strife again? I had forbidden Italy to gauge in war with Trojans. Under that ban, what does this conflict mean? What fear may those on this side and on that resort to arms, incite to arms? The time for war will come. You need not press for it. That day when through the Alps laid open wide, the savagery of Carthage blights the towns and towers of Rome, then men may strive and hate, then havoc one another. Now refrain. Be pleased to endorse the league I have decreed. Jupiter's words were few, not so the words of golden Venus in reply. O Father, eternal Lord of men and their affairs, what other powers may one call on now? Don't you see how Rutulians gloat, how Turnus rides in his car among them, all puffed up with his good luck in war? Close walls no longer, shield the Trojans, no, inside the gates. They must do battle on their very ramparts, and moats run high with blood, all unaware. Aeneid is far away. Now will you never let the siege be raised? Once more an enemy looms at the walls of budding Troy, once more a host of soldiers, and once more the son of Tydeus, this time from Aetolian Arpi, rises against the Trojans. Yes, I think, my wounds are yet in store for me, and I, your child, but keep the mortal spearmen waiting. If without your consent, your heavenly will, the Trojans cross to Italy, then let them pay for their sins, afford them no relief. But if they had those many oracles, heavens and the underworlds behind them, why can the first who comes ignore your will and form the new destinies? Must I recall the burning ships of Eric's shore, the king of tempests and the gales unleashed, out of Euler or Iris born, from cloudland? Even the powers of hell are stirred by Juno now, that third part of the world remain untried. Alecto has been ushered suddenly into the upper world and goes in frenzy through Italian towns. No thought of empire moves me now. One only hoped, for that while fortune held. Let those you favor conquer. If there is no place on earth, your pitiless consort will allow the Trojans. Then by the smoking rubble of fallen Troy, I beg you, Father, let me send Ascanius unharmed out of the war. Let him live on, my grandson. Granted Aeneas may be tossed on strange waters again, and lay his course where fortune shows the way. But let my strength only protect this child, and save him now from deadly combat. Amathias is mine, and Paphos' height, Cytheris and Idalia. There let him put his arms away, and spend his life ingloriously. Ordain that Carthage crush beneath her sway Ausonian power. No hindrance there to the city-states of Tyre. What use then to escape the plague of war, to take flight through the mist of Argive fires, to taste all bitter perils of the sea, and the vast earth looking for Latium, for Pergamoth reborn? And would it not have served them better to have made a home upon the ashes of their land, the soil, where Troy once was. Just give them Xanthus back and Simois, I beg. Let the poor Trojans live through Ilium's hard hours again. Then queenly Juno, strong to fury, said, Why force me to break silence long and deep, and put abroad in words my hidden pain? Of men and gods did any drive Aeneas to choose war, to march as an enemy against the Latin king? He sailed for Italy under the fate's direction. Let it be so. And spurred on by the mad fits of Cassandra, did he leave camp, trust life to the wild winds, under my influence, or give a boy authority in war, command, or ramparts, or trouble Etruscan loyalty, or the lives of peaceful folk? What god, what cruelty of mine impelled him to this harm? Where, now, is Juno to be found in this, or Iris down from the clouds? Intolerable that Italians ring your building, your buddy Troy, with flames. That Turnus sets foot on the soil of this fatherland, whose grandfather was Palomus, and whose mother, divine Vanilla. What then of the torch, the Trojans carrying smoke against Latins? What of their subjugating other fields, and driving off their herds? What shall we say of how they take their pick of fathers-in-law, and drag the betrothed girl from her lover's arms? How with their hands outstretched they pray for peace, and armored their beak ships? Oh, you, of course, can steal Aeneas from the hands of Greeks, and spread in the man's place ground, mist, and air, and change a fleet into so many nymphs, that I, for my part, help the Rutilians somewhat. Is this abominable? All unaware, Aeneas is far away, all unaware, and far away let him remain. Your homes are Paphos, Ilium, and Cythereus' height. Why go afield to be a walled town rife with war, and rugged fighting hearts? Am I the one who has attempted to bring Phrygia's frail kingdom down? Am I? Or is it not the man who pitted the poor Trojans once against Achaeans? What is the cause that made them, Europe and Asia, break the peace and rise in arms through treachery? Guided by me, did the adulterous Dardan make his conquest over Sparta, or did I supply the weapons, or foment the war with lust? You should have fear then for your people. Now late in the day you rise to make your moan, unfounded too, and bait me pointlessly. So ran the plea of Juno, and the lords of sky, each to his mind, murmured assent. And when the early gust caught in a forest murmur, the rustling unseen wind rolls on, the harbinger of gales to come, for men at sea, the Almighty Father then, chief power of the world, began to speak. And as he spoke, the great hall of the gods fell silent, and earth quaked, and silence reigned in highest air. The west winds went to rest, the deep sea stilled his waters into calm. Take heed then, and keep fast in memory these words of mine. Whereas Arsanians are not allowed to league themselves with Trojans, and is not acceptable to you, to end your discord, therefore I shall hold without distinction Rutilians and Trojans, whatever fortune each may have today, whatever hope may guide them, whether the camp lies under siege as fated for Italians, or through Troy's blunder, and through prophecies maligned and dark. Neither do I exempt the Rutilians. The effort each man makes will bring him luck or trouble. To them all, King Jupiter is the same king, and the fates will find their way. Then, by his Stygian brothers' rivers, boiling blanks and black whirlpool, he took oath, nodding, making all Olympus tremble at his nod. There was an end of speaking. Jupiter from his golden throne arose, and lords of heaven on either hand escorted him to the threshold of his hall. That day, the Rutulians beset all gates, fighting to kill, to ring the walls with flame. The Aenean legion could but bear the siege, immured within, and had no hope of flight. Poor soldiers, helpless to break out, they stood on towers aloft, and thinly manned the ramparts. There was Asius, Imbras's son, Diomedes, Hyas' son, and both Asarasi, with the Castor and Olympus. In the front line, Sarpedon's brothers then, Clarus and Thamon from highland of Lycia. There Achaemon of Larsinus, great in bulk as Clatius his father or his brother. Menethetus with all his might lifted a stone so huge it seemed the fragment of a mountain. Some with javelins fought the besiegers off, some with stones, or throwing firebrands and fitting arrows to the bowstring. See, enclosed by them, the Dardan prince himself, most fitting ward of Venus, his fair head, uncovered as a jewel shines out, inset in yellow gold, a jewel for throat or brow, or as pale ivory glows, inlaid by craft, in boxwood or Orician terebinth. Upon his milky nape the flowing hair, caught in a pliant golden band, came down. And Ismarus, you too were seen by young, high-hearted kingsmen as you aimed your shots and armed your shafts with poison, well-born son of a Myonian house where ploughmen turn, rich earth, Pactolus waters with its gold. And Methys too was there, exalted still by yesterday's great feat, when he fought Turnus down from the rampart. Capys too, whose name descends to us in the Capian city. That day all these fought on in bitter war, but in the middle of that night Aeneas ploughed the coastal sea. When he had left Evander and reached the camp of the Etruscans, he sought the king, told him his name and race, what help he looked for, and what help he brought, informed him of the levies that Messenius won over, and the violent heart of Turnus, reminded him how unsure the plans of men are, and so reasoning made his plea. No time was lost. Tarchon joined forces with him, sealed the pact, and freed from fate's delay. The Lydian host, pledged to a foreign captain at the command of heaven, went to sea. Aeneas' ship sailed first in line. Her break showed Phrygians' lines below a figurehead of Ida. Welcome sight to exiled Trojans. There great Aeneas sat and inwardly reflected on the fortunes of the war. And Pallas at his left hand questioned him, now of the stars, the course laid through the night, now of adventures met by land and sea. Muses, throw wide the gates of Helicon, and lift your song of all that host that sailed beneath Aeneas' flag from Tuscan shores, and manned the ships and rode the sea. Massicus, first in the bronze-beaked tiger, cleft the waves, commander of 1,000 men who left the walls of Clusium and Cosa city, arrowed their weapons, quivers lightly slung and deadly bows. Along with him sailed Abas, grizzled and grim, his whole ship's company in richest armor, and his ship agleam with gilt Apollo for a figurehead. His Paphlonian motherland had sent 600 practiced fighters, and 300 came from the isle of Eba, rich in ore, and inexhaustible mines of the Chalybes. Third came the interpreter of gods to men, Acelus, who commanded all presage of entrails at the altar, stars in heaven, flight of birds, prophetic lightning fires. He hurried aboard a ship 1,000 men in close formation, rugged ranks of spears, placed under him by the Tuscan towns of Pisa, settled from Greece from Alpheus riverside. Auster came next, the handsomest of captains, confident horsemen, bearing motley arms. 300 soldiers more had been dispatched, like-minded in their zeal, but those at home in Caris and plains of Minio, in ancient Phrygia, fever-prone Grefsce, Cornigus, never could I pass you by, bravest in war of the Ligurian captains, nor you with your scant following, Capavo, plumage of swan upon your crest, a sign reproaching armor, and his goddess mother with your own father's change of form. Cycnus, they say, when mourning Pantheon, in Pantheon's young sister's poplar shade among the new leaves, quieting with song, his woe for love lost, dressed himself in softest plumage as in snowy age, and left the earth, and chanting sought the stars. With crewmen young as he, the son Cupavo drove ahead with oars the giant centaur, figurehead that towered, threatening the waves with great boulder. The tall ship, with long keel driven, furrowed the open sea. Then Aeneas came, who rose his company from the paternal waterways, a son of Sibylline, Monto, and the Tuscan river. Mantua, it was he who gave you walls and named you for his mother. Monto, rich in forebears, not of a single stock, but 3 distinct tribes, each with 4 communes. The chief one Mantua, whose vigor came from Tuscan blood. Messenta's cruelty had there aroused 500 sturdy men to take arms against him. These were led by a pine timber fighting ship, whose prow showed Manus' river flowing out of Garda, farther Garda in great veil of sedge. Then, heavy in the waves of Alcestis came, surging ahead, as 100 tree-trunk oars lashed at the sea and turned it up in foam. Huge Triton bored him, and the blue sea quailed before the figure's couch, the dipping torso down to the flanks, a shaggy man, his belly merging with a monster of the sea. Beneath the semi-human breasts, the foaming groundswell murmured. All these many captains in 30 ships had sailed for Troy's relief, and sheared the expanse of brine with brazen prows. And I'm going to leave it off there. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy. Please leave a comment below, give it a thumbs up, a thumbs down, view, subscribe, or just keep watching. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.